Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Discovering the Repackager, a technical walkthrough webinar. My name is Cristina Constantinescu, and I lead marketing initiatives here at Advanced Installer. I'm very pleased to be with you today. I'm going to be your moderator for the Discovering the Repackager webinar. Thank you for registering, and thank you for your participation. Today, Bogdan will give us a walkthrough of the Repackager. But before we get started, let's go through a few technical details. First, the questions. Please feel free to submit your questions at any time to Bogdan, our presenter, by typing your questions into the Q&A pane of your control panel. You may send your questions at any time during the presentation. We have some of our technical support teams members joining us today, and they will try to address your inquiries during the presentation. We will go through all your questions at the end of the presentation. I would like to remind you also that this webinar is a live webinar and that we are recording it. We will upload it on YouTube channel and send you the link within the next 24 hours. We are going to include also the Q&A session, so stay tuned. That being said, I would like to introduce our presenter, Bogdan Mitrake, Product Manager at Advanced Installer. So Bogdan, you
Thank
have
you,
the
Christina.
stage.
Thank you, Christina. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'll try to give you a quick overview of our Repackager and how it has evolved from its initial release about 10 years ago. Our agenda for today will help you understand its core functionality. Along the way, we'll see how you can leverage our virtual machines integrations and its automation command line interface, along with some tips and tricks hidden into our user interface. Now let's take a closer look at our Repackager. Using the Advanced Installer Repackager, you can create MSI, MSIX, and AppV packages from one single round with one click, as we've said in our email. You know that's not that easy with just one click, but I'll show exactly what we meant with that. You don't need to waste precious time in repeating all the capture steps for each package, because basically these are the same. You start your sequencer, run the package inside your VM, preferably, and monitor the changes, then at the end, build the package. What we do here is that we capture all these details in a dedicated project. I'll show you how that looks a little bit later. In our Repackager UI, we load that project and allow you to generate the desired output with one click. You just switch between different outputs depending on the package you want. It sounds simple, but actually behind the scenes we do a lot of complicated translations, if we can call them this way. It's basically getting those raw resources that we capture, the files and the registry from the system, and converting them into high-level constructs that end up into your MSI or MSIX package. And by high-level constructs, I mean file type associations, environment variables, firewall rules, and so on. For an MSI, that might not seem so obvious. You could say, okay, I don't need all that translation. I can poke around in the registry and customize my file type associations or COM registration however I want. And I can agree with that. That could work if you have time to waste or don't care about the quality of your packages. Because you, or even worse, a junior package from your team who doesn't know what he's doing, can easily break a package this way, and then you waste a lot of time with testing the package and getting all the process from scratch because you don't know where the problem appears. It's usually hard to debug, especially with COMs. You all know that. But even so, if you are trying to build an MSIX package, ignoring the high-level constructs and leaving all those resources into simple files and registry entries will not work at all. If your packaging tool doesn't know how to correctly map all those resources into corresponding entries from the package manifest, your package is worthless. Your MSIX package in this case. By the way, if you don't know what a package manifest is, check out my previous webinar about MSIX. You should have a link to its recording in the registration email you got when you sign up for this webinar. So I mentioned our Repackager is project-based. Let me give you a few more details about that. this slide here tries to depict the package lifecycle inside our repackager, starting from when you launch the repackager to generating the desired output. Once you repackage an installation, you get a project, as I said, and in that project you will see your first session. I'll show you that in a few minutes how that looks. A project can contain multiple sessions. So basically, these are multiple attempts from your side to repackage the application with different settings. For example, if you are tweaking the repackager filters or simply repackaging a new version of the same app, you get a new session in the project. This way, you can see all your attempts or the ones from your colleagues if you work on a team and you share packages with them into one single organized place. That's where you will see how you can use some notes and other tips and tricks from our repackager to make your job easier. From this session, you can choose to either generate the final output directly in the Repackager UI, or you can choose to import the project into an advanced installer full-blown project and fine-tune it a little bit more. Because in advanced installer, you basically have access to the best UI on the market when it comes to packaging. The repackager itself is focusing on managing the repackaging processes, but not that much on customizing the package once you want to generate it. It gives you a basic functionality to edit the main components from the package, but the full power of editing the package is inside Advanced Installer. So for those of you that have used Advanced Installer so far, you've probably seen that these are two separate applications that get installed the moment you get installer MSI on your machine. You have you can launch the Repackager directly from Advanced Installer, but you can also launch it separately, and they both communicate with each other. So basically, the Repackager generates an intermediary output that Advanced Installer consumes and builds the project from there on. Let me show you a quick look at that. So here I have a project from my previous rehearsals for this webinar. So here on the left side, I have a few sessions from my batching. So the package that I'm repackaging is a Notepad++ installer. I've chosen it because it's a lightweight package, so we don't spend too much time waiting for the machine to do all the conversion. So here you see the options that you have for your package, the sessions from my multiple attempts. And if you want to build a package, you just specify which package output you want to generate from the toolbar and hit the build button. Or if you want, okay, we want to customize this session in particular, you just say open in Advanced Installer. And basically Advanced Installer imports that project generated by the Repackager. And now you have full access to editing the project just as you would be the developer of this app, because basically you can control anything from this MSI or MSIX. You can say delete uninstall.exe, you don't need that anymore, or delete the updater because you don't want to have automatic updates going without your notice. And you can customize everything from the components and the features from the package to registry, or let's say you want to customize one of your COM registration, and you just go to COM pages, and you see here, as I said, the high-level constructs are detected by our repackager, and they appear easily in our UI, so you can easily customize them. You don't need to manually go and tweak into the registry. You can do that if you want. You can find them all here, but it takes a lot more time. So before going a little bit diver into our demos, let's continue a little bit more with some details. If you look at this slide, you actually say that the Repackager project and the Advanced Installer project are completely separate, just as I showed you before. But this is only partially true. That's because the Repackager actually generates a temporary Advanced Installer project every time you hit the build button in the toolbar that I just showed you. The options to generate the package from the Repackager are added in the Repackager UI just to make it easier for you to test the new package for each of the sessions that you've built. But as you well know, in many cases, the repackaging process doesn't go that smooth and you don't get a perfect package from the first try. So you need to tweak that around a little bit. Therefore, the next time you see an error in the build log, don't worry, just open the project in Advanced Installer and try building it again, just as I showed you. Here you will get a much more powerful UI that can help you easily build the package or get additional notifications that inform you about the state of your package and which resources are compatible with the package you're building or not, as you will see in the case of an MSIX package, for example. Okay. Now, let's talk a little bit about VM's integrations. Before you get to our demos, let's talk a little bit about how virtual machines are important for repackaging. Basically, if you want to get an accurate capture, a clean repackaging machine is mandatory. And you don't want to have a separate computer next to your desk to just do all that. Yeah, that's not practical anymore. The best way is to leverage a clean machine through virtualization. This is why our Repackager has native integration with the most used virtualization platforms, Hyper-V and VMware. You can run the Repackager locally on your host machine, and it will automatically connect to a VM that you specify. This way you are sure that you get consistent results for every new package. The VM can run either local on your local machine or from a server like vSphere, for example. Today, I will show you how to use the repackage with a machine from my local PC, because now everybody's working from home and I don't want to play around with the internet connection from our city. You never know how demos go when you do that. Please note that I'm not installing the Repackager in the VM. The Repackager is actually running on my host machine, as I said, and it connects to the VM automatically and manages it. So it will restore the snapshot for the VM, launch the package inside, and do all the stuff for me. If you prefer, you can also install the Repackager directly in the VM, but this way you need to make sure that the VM is always restored to the correct snapshot before you capture a new application. And this can lead to packages that contain corrupted packages, and it's a more error-prone situation. The only resource that we deploy in the VM, besides the actual package that we're repackaging, is a small helper toolkit. It's called Advanced Installer Tools, and you will see its icon in the tray when the guest operating system runs in the VM. This allows our host repackager to connect and communicate with the VM and manage all the repackaging steps accordingly. Now let's have some fun with some live demos. Okay, so as I showed you here, this is a Repackager project that I've already started. But if you're starting from scratch, you would either launch the Repackager directly. Here I have a pre-release version of our newest version, and you just say capture setup, you select your exe and go on from here, and you get the same view that I showed you here. Or you can start Advanced Installer and say, then you'll go to the IT Pros tab, the Convert area, and here you have multiple options. You can say repackage an installation. You can either create an MSIX package, and basically in the end we start the repackager with some defaults for MSIX. Or you can say a new app, I want a new app v package, and we basically do the same. We start the repackager with some defaults for app v, but these are just customized shortcuts to the same repackager. So now let's get back to my previous project that I already have. So let's say that I want to get to repackage a new version, or just try some changes on my project because it didn't work in the previous option. So I have the package here selected. If I want to add, for example, an update or some scripts to be executed next to our package, we just add them here using the add additional packages option. And you can add as many as you want. So this will be sequenced one after another in the VM. And here you have some options for your next repackaging session. So you can instruct the VM to prompt and wait for user input before or after installing the package. Here I have enabled an option to automate the package installation UI. So basically, in this case, I don't have to go through the installer that I'm repackaging and click next, and accept all the defaults. The repackager will do this for me. So this is this option here. It might not be that visible, and we cannot zoom it a bit because it will not look nice, but you'll find it in our documentation. I also have some options here to generate me a PowerShell script saving the sessions for this UI steps that I'm doing. So basically everything that I'm doing now in the user interface will be saved in a PowerShell script that can automate basically all these steps. And I'll show you how that script looks a little bit later. Now, the repackager options are pretty straightforward. If you've done repackaging with other tools, you know that you need to have a set of profiles that you can customize, and you can access them from our configuration manager in the toolbar. We have some defaults, and then you can duplicate those ones and customize them. You can do file and registry exclusions, even processes, and you can also customize how you interpret, how the repackager interprets that captured raw data that I mentioned. And this is very important, especially if you're doing MSIX package. Basically, it's critical for MSIX packages. For MSIs, you might get away with it because basically the resources end up on the system somehow, and if they are not corrupted, it will work. You just will not be able to customize them that easily. But with MSIX, if you do not convert a file type association accordingly to its entry in the package manifest, that won't work at all in the package. Okay, and here we have two important options: start local and start in VM. Start local means that it will run the repackager locally on my machine, and I don't want that because my machine has a lot of software installed and the capture will be inaccurate. So I've configured a virtual machine. You can do that from here, edit virtual machine profiles. And it will basically connect to a VMware workstation machine that I have on my machine, and it will run all the operations in there. So here in this virtual machines profile editor, you see the options for the machines that you can configure. I have two local host machines configured here. You can specify which snapshot from the machine to be used every time you do a new packaging process. Some credentials that you need. The machine needs to be logged in when you take that snapshot. You can find more details in our documentation. And as I said, you can use VMware or Hyper-V virtual machines. And if you're not, if you don't want to use a local host machine, maybe you have a server with more powerful machines, then you can just declare a new server connection and just specify your credential. Let's say here I have a sample server connection where you can specify your URL or IP for your server and the credentials to log in, and then the machines will be appearing available here to connect to them, just as you have your local host machines. So let's leave this machine configured as it is and start a repackaging. Here you can see the previous log from my previous attempts, but this will be reset the moment I start now a repackaging process. So what you're seeing now is controlled automatically by the repackager. You see the the VMware workstation automatically popped up. It's starting to load my configure snapshot. The repackager will create a shared space between the host and the virtual machine, so it can share resources automatically between these two machines. So if sometimes you have a custom network configuration or firewall rules in your enterprise, you might get errors in connecting with the repackager. So please reach out to our user documentation or contact our support team if the documentation is not helpful enough to get you through to it. So you see the repackager has started the machine. This is just a command line interface to give you like a basic information on the progress of the repackaging operation that is taken care of in the machine. And now you see the dialogues of our installer that basically, you see this, I'm moving my mouse, I'm not clicking on the dialogues, and they are going, the repackager is going through the defaults from each dialog automatically. This means that you can automate a lot of packages that do not have silent installations. And that can be very useful, or if you want to just automate more packages that take you a lot of time, because this is the part where you add the list value when you're actually converting the package to the new project. The customizing part of the project is the most important, where your knowledge is used accordingly. So here I will also show you how you can do a post-install configuration of your application. So let's say we want this Notepad++ installation to be deployed with a hex editor plugin. I like to use this one a lot. So we want it to be available for all the users when we deploy this application. So we'll install this plugin from the manager. And let's wait for Repacker. We have now the plugin here available, and it appears right here. So now everything is here. We can close the repackager. We'll leave it. It's taking the second snapshot. So the repackaging process is basically very familiar to all of you guys that have done repackaging before. We take a snapshot before and after the installation takes place, and we compare them. And basically, using the filters that I've showed you, we try to get the best results of the resources that we consider to be part of your package. And only after that, we interpret that raw data and convert it into high-level constructs that are very important for your packaging there. So as you've seen, the VM has closed automatically, and now we go back to the repackager. We have a new session. Here is the same log that you've seen in that command line interface. And if you see any errors, you should see them here. But if you have a green line, that's perfect. You have the new session generated and all the resources. And here we have a quick summary of the resources included into your package, shortcuts, file type association, and so on. And the registry, of course, you can easily remove some of them just by unticking them. And this way you can have a quick overview and test the package very easily. So let's say here I just want to build a quick MSI, and I'm getting that package here is signed. That's perfect. We have the package. That's great. And I also want to build an MSIX. As I said, you can build a package with one click. So you see now, I don't need to go through all the repackaging steps one more time just to create an MSIX package. If you would be using the MSIX packaging tool, for example, you wouldn't get a project. So you first run the tool, sequence the package, get an MSIX. Then if you want to maybe build an MSI because the MSIX doesn't work, you get some container conflicts, let's say, with some features from the application cannot work inside the MSIX container. You need to do a complete new repackaging to generate an MSI with another tool because the MSIX packaging tool doesn't do that. But again, that's time consuming, and it also basically resets all your work. For example, here, if I'm going and just eliminating the updater folder because I don't need an automatic updater in the package, this will propagate this change through all of my packages. Doesn't matter that I build an MSI or MSIX or AppV. While if you do this in separate steps, you basically start from scratch every time you need to do a new repackaging operation. Now that I have an MSI, let's say that I also want to add a set of resources to all of my MSIs. A common practice in packaging teams is to add some registry that that mark that package with the information of the owner of the colleague that built the package. So here I have a temp. For this, we have a template support. And in Advanced Installer, we've had a template support for quite a few years so far, but that was different. It allowed you to create a new project from a template. I will show you that a little bit later. And then in that project, you could add additional resources. But in that case, in this case, we already have the resources from the repackager. So we're just instructing the repackager to get the template that we already have, in this case, my Auto-Bogdan template, and apply that on the MSI. So as I said in the background, every time you hit the build button, we generate a new temporary project in Advanced Installer and include those resources. So now that I've selected the template, if I build the MSI one more time, and if we open this MSI with Advanced Installer, if you didn't know that, we have a full UI editor that allows you to edit an MSI much easily. So you don't see just tables. You can see the tables, but you can also see the files very easily, or the registry in our case. Let's see my registry that shows me my value from the template. So basically, this is everything that I have in my template registry value. And the way we did this before is, as I said, you would basically go back and create a new project. You go back to Developers tab and create a project from a custom template. So here you have the template and just say New Project. So basically this project is empty. It doesn't have any files in it. It just has that registry entity that I mentioned. So in a template, you can have files, registries, MSI properties if you're building a template to be using for your MSIs. Anything basically that you can include in your package can be part of the template. And it's very easy to create one. You just say, I want to create a new empty project. And let's say this is my a new template. And let's delete this. Let's rename this registry. Let's say test template. We'll leave it this way, it doesn't matter. And the only thing that you need to do differently is when you go to save, you save it as a template. And just give it a name, my template. And that's all. Now, when you go back to our start page, you don't need to save this because the template is saved anymore, so we don't need this project. And go to custom templates, we see the new template here in advanced installer. And if we restart the repackager, we will also see it here available in the list. Now, as I showed you, you can also edit the project in advanced installer. So let's say maybe that template doesn't contain anything, all the information that you need. So the advanced installer informs us that it has imported the project and the new template has been applied. So we can find the registry again in our package. But I want to change the name. Let's say I want my full name to be included here. So all I do is do this, add it, and now I'm going to builds page and say build my MSI. You need to save the project, and that's done. Okay. And basically, if you're an advanced installer, as I said, you can customize everything. You can customize your summary information for the MSI or your cab layout, anything you want in that package. You have full raw access to it. One mention that you saw here, what I did is that I've actually saved a new project. So basically, you have two separate projects now. You have the Repackager project, which has the extension RPK. This stores the information that you see here in files, registry, and everything like that. And then you have an AIP project file, which should be one in those folders. Let's see in which one I've saved the last one. Maybe I'm lucky here. Yeah. So this is an advanced installer project. So basically, this is what you get when you import the repackager. If you double click on the repackager, advanced installer imports it, and if you hit save, it will generate this AIP project file. These are both XML files, so you can easily view them with your preferred editor, but we highly recommend you do not edit them directly and instead use only our user interface or the command line interface to automate different edit operations from your package. This is because you can easily break the project and advanced installer won't be able to load it or to build it. And the difference is here that this project allows advanced installer to map all the outputs or all the project contents into your MSI tables or MSIX package manifest and the related resources. While as the repackager just keeps the information regarding what it had captured and additional information like what profile was used, on what virtual machine we've done the repackaging, and all of that information that you've seen here. And on top of this RPK file, we have a master RPK file. So this is a Repackager project file. You can consider it as a solution file. Basically, this is the file that contains the information about all the sessions that you see here. So if you open this file with the Visual Studio Code I have here on my machine, basically you will see that it says, hey, these are your sessions. These are the sources, the RPK for each of your sessions. So if you want to go and look for one of them, you can go here. And it basically instructs our user interface to easily load all of those sessions at once instead of you opening one, seeing if it's something that you want, and then going back to it and switching all over. It makes it switching between sessions much easier. Okay, now let's get back to our Repackager and build an MSIX package. So all you have to do is, as I said, is just enable the option in the toolbar, build MSIX. Let's skip the MSI for now and hit build. Yeah. But one more thing, with MSIX, you need to digitally sign the packages. As I said a little bit earlier, if you haven't played with MSIX so far, I highly recommend my previous webinar where we covered the main topics that are introduced by MSIX. And digital signing is an important topic that you need to understand when you go and start using, start packaging in MSIX applications. So we'll select a test certificate. This is a self-generated certificate. You can just create one with one click from here using the create button, and we'll enable signing. So every time you select a certificate and enable signing, either in advanced installer or in the repackager, you will see a dialog like this one that asks you to synchronize the publisher ID from your project with the one from the certificate. And this is very important because the operating system validates the publisher ID, which is practically an ID stored in the package manifest of your MSIX, with the one from the certificate that was used to sign it. And if there isn't a match between those IDs, uh, it will refuse to install the application, saying that something got corrupted the wrong way. This is one way for the operating system to verify the identity of the package. So you see here, the ID has been updated to the information from my certificate. Usually when you have a certificate issued from a trusted vendor, it should appear the company name. Here it should say Cafion, for example, when we build our MSIX for advanced installer, when we publish it in the Microsoft Store. And if you have a self-generated certificate that you use only internally in your company, you probably have this this publisher customized also. So now, as I said, the same resources that get included in the package, in the MSI package, also get included in my MSIX package. So you don't need to do a new repackaging session, you just hit the build button. And you have here a build log. And the build log says here, hey, we have an error. Uninstall exe is not a valid portable executable file for MSIX packages. Okay, that sounds logic. Let's go back and just remove that the file from the system. And you just go here and you do it like this. And that's it. You've uninstalled. So basically what this allows you is to remove the file from the package that you're generating, but the repackager still knows about it. So every time you open the RPK, you see the full list of files that were part of the original package. And at the same time, you can see which ones you or your colleagues decided to exclude from the package for different reasons, be it an invalid file, as it in this case, and we don't need it, neither for the MSI or for the MSIX. So now we just hit build again, and we get the MSIX package. Basically, this log is very similar with the one that you see in Advanced Installer. And only that in Advanced Installer, you get to interact with it a little bit more. And I'll show you what I meant by that. So here, I have the MSIX package. If you double click the package, you'll see it's a trusted app because it was signed with the self-generated certificate that I already have deployed on my machine. So every time you generate a certificate like this, if you don't have one from a certified vendor, you need to make sure that all the machines where the MSIX gets deployed have that certificate already installed and trusted. Otherwise, the installation of the package will fail on the machine. And now let's install it. And it should launch my notepad. I already had a session of notepad here, so I'll show it. So basically, we have an RPP, a repackager project file, just the one that, just like the one that I showed you in the in Visual Studio Code. So if we look into my system apps, and let's hit a refresh here, we have a normal installation of Notepad, which I had installed for a few months already. And now we have the MSIX version of that. You can see it's easily detectable by the different screen icon of the MSIX, and we have the publisher information extracted from the certificate here. If you would have modification packages or additional optional packages installed next to your MSIX, you would see them here when you click at the advanced options button. Okay, so now let's get back to our Repackager. So as I said, if you were to build the package in advanced installer, let's add back the uninstall.exe file, which is an invalid resource for our Repackager, and open it in the project in advanced installer. And we'll try to build it from there, the MSIX. So we have here the digital signature. Okay. And we have my certificate. One moment. And let's go to builds page and build our MSIX. So here we have basically the default options. You can customize more for your MSIX. And if I hit build, it should complain, okay, we need to save the project. Let's replace the previous one. We have here some warnings about some resources from the package, but we get the same error about the file that it's invalid. The advantage here is that after you close the build pane, you get a list of the errors that is interactable. So you can just double click the error and it gets you directly to the file that is problematic, or registry or other resource from the package. So it's much easier in advanced installer to just go here, delete find that resource that is causing problem, delete it, and then go back and build the project. In the Repackager UI, you basically had to manually go and look for the file with that name. You had an error that says, hey, this file is in this folder, but it's a little bit more cumbersome. So now you get the same package just as we did with the Repackager. Only that now we have the project and we can customize that package even more. So for example, with MSIX packages, we should be able to customize the application details. So let's see. We have an application. We don't have shortcuts in MSIX. Again, please watch my previous webinar if you want to learn more about MSIX. But here, basically, this is how you customize your contents inside an MSIX package. So you say, I want to have a different command line for my entry point, or I want to change the name, and so on. And these are views that are not available when you edit the package in the Repackager UI. Okay. Now let's show you a quick trick that I like to use a lot, and that's regarding how you take notes and also screenshots that you can use later on to improve your repackaging operation, or to maybe share information much easily between you and your colleagues, or maybe between an older version of you and a newer version. Let's say you've done a package 12 months ago and you don't know how you did all the configuration of the package. You just select the session here and you just add some notes and say, okay, do a post install configuration and add the hex plugin, okay? And save all this information here. Or maybe you've saved some screenshots with the configuration of our dialog. I haven't saved any screenshots in my previous session, but let's see in an older one. Okay, here. So here I have the screenshots that I've saved when the Repackager did its repackaging operation a little bit earlier. So you can have all this information shared in your Repackager project, and when a new colleague opens it, it will be available here. So he sees what options you configure in the dialogues. It's much easier than parsing Word documents or whatever form you use to share information between each other. Another great thing that you can do with advanced installer, not with the Repackager itself, and it's mostly something that I would recommend avoid doing with the Repackager, especially because I've seen other clients of ours that come from competitor tools with this bad practice. And what they do is that whenever they have an in-house app that they need to package, they get a list of files, folders, and some additional resources if the app has a file association or a COM registration and so on. And that's basically documented in a text file or in a Word document, and you need to put them all into an MSI. Let's make it simple. And what I've seen with a lot of customers is that they start the Repackager and they say, okay, start with the repackager, but do not capture anything. So basically, it's what we call session monitoring. So it starts the repackager without actually requiring you to provide a legacy setup that you want to convert. And when it starts the VM, they go and do all those changes manually. So they install the files manually on the machine. They they add the file association registry and so on. And that's not practical to do when you have a tool as powerful as Advanced Installer. You can just open Advanced Installer and say, create me a new project from scratch. So you go again into the start page, into the developers area, because basically developers usually create projects from scratch. You guys do repackaging, but when you have the Architect Edition, you can access all of these projects. You create a new empty project, or one from a template that I've just shown you, and then you just go and add the files that you have for your application. Let me add some files here, some samples on. Okay. Then you create a shortcut and customize that shortcut very easily. So basically you have full access to anything that you have in your package. You go and customize registry, or you go and say, I want to add a file association, and just add a new file association here. I haven't added any EXEs, so I don't have anything to associate in the package. But if I would have an EXE, you just declare them very easily. And after that, you just go and hit build, just as I showed you before. And this is when you get you save the project again, and you get the MSI. So we'll skip about that. The advantage here is that every time you want to update that application, you don't need to create all the steps from scratch. You just open the project and add the new files that you want. So let's say, in example, I'm opening Advanced Installer again, and I have here a list of recent projects. I'll open my last project. Okay, and I want now to have version 2.0 of my application build. In this version, I'm deleting some registry. Of course, you need to generate a new product code to follow the rules. And let's customize something, and then you go and build the package. So this takes you just a few minutes depending on the changes included in that version. Usually the changes are not that big. Most of the time you just have new versions of your DLL, so nothing changes in the product in the package besides the version. So all you have to do is to replace those files on the system and start a new build, which you can do from our UI, or you can trigger automatically using our command line interface. Okay. Now let's see. Let's get a little bit back to our slides. So let's talk a little bit about automation. You've seen a part of it. For example, the automation done by our repackager for managing the VM snapshots. The repackager started the virtual machine for me. It restored the VM snapshot that I have configured, and it actually installed the legacy package there for me. I don't have to do any clicks in there. You can leave it to do the clicks manually if it's something. For example, for this we're using an API from the Windows operating system, so some packages that do not follow the standards in respecting the user interface recommendations might not work with that automation UI. So it depends. In that case, you want to manually install the application. But that's not all. All the manual steps that I just demoed you before can be actually automated, because we've saved that PowerShell script with the option that I've initially highlighted. So let's have a quick look on how that script looks like. Okay, let's close this one and this one and this one, and open my script here. So here I have a PowerShell ICM, and this is a basic Notepad PowerShell script. Basically, you have the Repackager command line, the path of our Repackager, the command line, which you can customize, and then we start that process. You have information about our command line here. So every time the script is generated by the Repackager, you'll have all these details there, or just search on our website, Repackager command line, you'll find the pages very easily from our documentation. But in this command line, you can specify anything like I want UI automation for my package, or I don't want, I want to change the VM, or I want to provide a different password for my VM. That's it. If just in my password for the VM is not very complicated. You can say I want to check the machine state. So in this case, my machine was pre-prepared for this demo, but if the machine is not clean enough, you will see a pop-up from our repackager with some issues that it detected. For example, you might have automatic updates on the machine. You might have other applications running that could corrupt your package. And the repackager can fix most of those issues for you, but it's at least recommended to allow this check to take place. It's by default enabled, and it will help you get more accurate packages. So here, let's just start executing this script. Basically, here we see a command prompt that shows our command line interface for the repackager. So now it's not launching the UI interface that you've seen. So this prompt is running on my host machine. And unfortunately, it's very hard to read the log here because the defaults from Windows do not are not so friendly and not don't allow us to customize them that easily. But this script is now actually controlling my VM. So in the background, it's launching the Repackager command line interface. The Repackager starts communicating with the VM, and it's basically repeating the same steps while I'm here playing on my host machine. So I can even leave this VM here on minimized. I can do whatever other work I have to do on my machine. You see the snapshot is still taking place. So let me open it so you can see it. Everything is being executed without my interaction. So if you get a script for 10 applications like this, you can just leave the scripts running while you're in a lunch break or over the night, and you find all the RPK files generated for the repackager. Basically, you come back at the office and you find the projects that I'm showing you here. You find all the sessions, you find this RPK file, and when you open this other file, you'll find the RPKs for each of your sessions that you've generated. And here is the PowerShell script, one of the ones that I'm running in this case. Okay. So now basically the same operation are taking place. It had captured the state, it's closing my VM, and we get the package. And because we're running with a command line interface, we don't see any prompts in our user interface. So everything that you see is basically a new session here, and it's our latest session looking at its timestamp. It should be just a few seconds ago. Yeah, 5:48. We're in Europe. For those of you that has an early morning back in the US, good morning. So now we close the repackager, and as I said, we just double click the RPK and it imports it into advanced installer, and you have the same files and resources here. So it's just like a fresh new capture. You customize it, and then you go and build your MSI. Okay, that's about with the scripts. As I said, if you can find more information about our scripts on our website. Just search Repackager command line information, or follow our blog for more details. So you can find more resources. Sorry, let's have a quick recap before this. So today we've learned that the Repackager from Advanced Installer allows you to easily build MSI AppV and MSIX packages while integrating with Hyper-V VMware. We are actually working on a support to connect to remote machines, no matter the virtualization system. So basically, we use a remote, the default remote connection from the operating system, and that's on our roadmap. It will be probably available in a few months. So if you're not using Hyper-V or VMware, don't worry, you can still use leverage our integration with other virtual machines. And then, as I said, all of this can be automated or annotated using notes and screenshots that get saved directly into your project. So you don't need to, you don't lose them when you move projects around and transfer them from one colleague or another. Thank you all guys for joining us. Now let's have a quick look at our questions. Here you can find more resources about our repackager. And if you have more questions after this webinar, just tweet us at Advanced Installer or tweet me directly at Bogdan Mitrake. Christina, do we have some questions?
Yes, we do.
Yes, we have some Q&A here. So we'll start with Demetris. Okay, first question. Can we create patches for repackaged MSI project? It is possible to remove components and still maintain patch compatibility. Yes, you can create patches for a MSI project that you've generated using the Repackager, but usually we don't recommend building patches for them because it's very easy to break your updates. So in advanced installer, we had a feature that allowed you to migrate the components from one version to another. So it was basically comparing both projects and migrating the components IDs and everything just to maintain the patching rules. But what we've noticed it was that it was causing more issues for people that were not doing patches, and this is like 90% of the cases, than it was helping folks that were doing patches. So you can do them, but we don't recommend to do that, Demetris. Can you use Oracle VirtualBox? No, at the moment, as I said, we can use only Hyper-V or remote or VMware machines. Basically, we've explored Oracle VirtualBox, but because of their licensing terms, we've decided to not integrate with them directly. This is why we've chosen the path of working on a support of remote connection to virtual machines. So basically, it doesn't matter if you're running on a VirtualBox VM or any other provider of VMs, as long as you're running a Windows operating system in that VM, which you should be doing because you're repackaging Windows installer applications, you will be able to configure a remote connection from the Repackager running on your host machine to that machine running in your VM. It doesn't matter. Basically, the Repackager will just see it as another machine in your network, and it will connect to it, without using the standard protocols of communication with the VM. The advantage that we have with the VMs in the case of Hyper-V or VMware is that it allows us to have also management over the VM snapshots, so we can restore them and control them easily, or even provision those snapshots and create new ones. With for example, when we deploy the advanced installer tools, we can save a snapshot pre-configured, so it gives you much faster repackaging operations for future projects. In this case, when you will use a remote connection, basically you'll probably need to add a script that every time you finish a repackaging operation, it also resets your VirtualBox machine, because our repackager will not have access to its API. A new question: can all the repackaging steps you showed be automated? So as I've shown you, everything that I've done in the graphical user interface in the first post was basically executed with a script that was generated. So let me show you one more time. The option in the Repackager is right here. So let me open a project. So when you select current, when you select current, you'll find your package information, and you'll see here all the options. So you just say generate me a batch file or a PowerShell file with the options that I've configured from this session. So unless, as I said, the UI automation that clicks next, I agree to the package, uses an API from the operating system. So if the package that you're building doesn't follow the guidelines when that package was built, doesn't follow the UI guidelines recommended by Microsoft, the API might have issues detecting that automation. But in that case, if you have a switch to silently install the package, you can pass that switch here. Actually, not in here. Just say /silent, for example, and the package will be installed silently, and the rest of the steps that are related to our repackager will be automated, so you can still get a fully automated process for your repackaging operation. A new question from Daniel. Are there any specific features or integrations to facilitate packaging of MSIX on VWVD? So Daniel refers to Windows Virtual Desktop. At the moment, all the MSIX packages that we build inside Advanced Installer will work on WVD. The only thing that you need to do additionally is to run a PowerShell script that mounts the VHD, which is basically generated from the MSIX package. We have a feature on our roadmap to generate that VHD automatic for you for WVD, but that's very easy to do even with a single PowerShell line in the meantime while you're testing this feature. And until then, besides that, you don't have any other limitations from Advanced Installer. Now, when it comes to Windows Virtual Desktop, I already covered this topic in my previous webinar. Not all MSIX packages run. So, for example, in the latest release, the latest update for MSIX, Microsoft announced support for services inside MSIX packages. But they are actually not inside. The service gets deployed outside of the MSIX container, while the rest of the resources still remain in the MSIX container. And this is a scenario that's working only when you deploy the package directly on the machine using Intune or SCCM and so on, or you install it manually. But it doesn't work for Windows Virtual Desktop. So if you have an MSIX package with an app that has a service running next to it, you cannot deploy that with Windows Virtual Desktop. I don't have a full list with all the limitations, but I know there are quite a few scenarios where a fully valid package, MSIX package that runs on my machine will not work in the Windows Virtual Desktop environment. I have a new question here. We have somebody that's very privacy focused. Does the repackager take screenshots during repackager, or are they manually added? It doesn't take them automatically at the moment. You have to manually click the screenshot button. So let me go back a little bit to our repackager. If you go to the screenshots area, here the button now is disabled because I'm not in no current active repackaging session. But the moment the repackager starts a new session, this button gets enabled, and I'm able to take screenshots. But that's a good feature request. Maybe we'll do an automatic screenshots support later on in the future. Okay. Sorry for that. Let's see the next question. I haven't tried this yet, but is there a way to export or import a repackager session completely, including notes, screenshots, and source files, so you can share the project with an external colleague? If not, this is a feature request. So you don't need to do anything to export it. You just need to copy the files if you just want to share just a particular session and not the entire project. So as I showed you, the repackager has the RPP project file. This is the solution file which stores information about all the sessions. And in the folder next to it, we have a dedicated folder for all the sessions. Each folder is for one of the sessions. This is an older test. So here I have one session and so on. And the screenshots are next to it, so you can just copy these and share them with a different with a new colleague. A new question from Patrick. I have an application that has two separate executables. Can MSIX both install them in the same environment? Yes. So initially, you have a very good question, Patrick, because in the initial versions of MSIX, you could have only one entry point or one application, as Microsoft calls it. But now, if we go into a new let's add an MSIX build here. Okay. So here I have an example where well, I just have an MSI build in my project, and I just want to also generate an MSIX. So the UI looks a little bit different from the repackager. I'm just from the toolbar adding an MSIX build. So now from the same project, I can generate different outputs. I can customize my build. And for the MSIX build, I also get a set of new views that allow me to edit the package content. So in this case, I'm just going to Universal Windows Group Application Details. I have a default application that we've detected. But now let's say that I have an additional EXE. So I just say New Application. And let's find an ESC somewhere around here. Let's say this one is my second application. So now we have two applications defined here, and we can customize them. Basically, what we do, we generate the applications list automatically based on the shortcuts that you already have in the project. So we detected the default shortcut for Notepad, and based on that shortcut, we created one application. If you had two shortcuts here, you would have seen two applications in the list here. Okay. A new question from Patrick. Can an MSIX installed app display a file requester dialog to allow the user to import files from the machine? Okay. Let me read that one more time so I make sure that I'm understanding the question. Okay. Can an MSIX installed app display a file requester dialog to allow user to import files from the main machine files? I'm sorry, Patrick, but I don't understand exactly the scenario. Please follow up over email or with our support@advancedinstaller.com and give us some more detailed explanation, because right now I don't understand exactly the scenario. So basically, once you install the application on the machine, from your application you can do additional configurations, like you ask for the user for a password or do other files, but I don't understand exactly the scenario where you import files from the main machine file system. Basically, what you need to know about MSIX, I won't go too deep into the subject, is that even if the application is running inside your container, it can still see resources outside of it. So if you have files on your desktop or files in My Documents folders or registry outside of the registry from the MSIX container, your application can see them. Other applications cannot see what's inside your MSIX container, but that doesn't apply here. Another MSIX question from Tainder. For an MSIX application that has been provisioned for all users, is the only way to prevent a user from removing an application in their profile the command Set-NonRemovableAppsPolicy, or is there another way to ensure the user does not uninstall the application? At the moment, I don't know any other option than setting the policy, at least not from the package. So sorry, Tainder, but there is no other option to control that. Usually you control that using your policies support. I just remember regarding the VirtualBox question, before I go to the next question, the next question. If you don't want to have advanced installer manage your virtual remote machine, you can just install the Repackager directly into the VirtualBox machine. So basically, now I have it running on my local host machine, and the Repackager connects to a separate virtual machine. But instead, I could just open the VM, install advanced installer in it, take a snapshot, and then every time when I need to do repackaging, just spin up the VM and run the Repackager locally inside that VM. It's not that fast, as in it actually is the same. The speed is the same when it's taking the capture, but you'll have to configure some share folder or find a better way to share resources between the machine, the virtual machine on a local host, to make sure that you don't forget copying the resources and then you restore the snapshot and you lost all the entire project that was just repackaged. So okay. Oh, actually, the next question was actually about VirtualBox. So does this work? As I said, you can install the advanced install directly into the virtual machine at the moment. A question from Techner. It is possible to repackage browser to MSIX. How do vendors auto-update functionality works? I'm referring specifically to auto-update in Chrome and Firefox, where the application is installed machine-wide and uses an elevated serial to allow the application to update. So I don't understand exactly the question here, Dinder. Maybe you can add more details, but you can repackage a browser into an MSIX. I think we have an article on our website. If you search Chrome MSIX on our blog, you'll find a detailed article that shows the steps we've done to repackage a Chrome installation into an MSIX. What I don't understand exactly, how do you want to get the service to still perform the updates? Because the service will download the new MSI AXE version from Chrome. It will not download an MSIX from you. You can configure automated updates using an app installer file, but I'll leave that for a future webinar where we talk more about how you can do auto updates for MSIX packages. A new question: can we create packages which have compatible XP SP3 and convert them to install Windows 10 machines? So I'm assuming the question is, can we create packages for applications that run on XP and install those on Windows 10 machines? So the package itself is not a problem. You can convert that. The challenge here is your application compatibility issues. So when you're jumping from XP directly to Windows 10 and you've probably missed your Windows 7 migration, one of the major challenges that appears when migrating such kind of legacy application is the elevation prompts from Windows and the permissions that your application needs. In the past, developers used to write logs into program files and run application as admin, and that's not a feasible scenario nowadays, especially with MSIX. So you might need some app compatibility schemes to be deployed next together with your package. But when it comes to the package itself, it's no problem. The Repackager supports converting any package for XP, Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows servers, and Windows 10 machines. One more question. Let's see. From Daniel Faras. Can you please share the link to the webinar where you mentioned that covered? Daniel, the link for that webinar is in the email that you got when you registered for this webinar, in the footer of that email. But when we'll send you the recording for this email, we'll make sure to include the new link for everyone to that previous webinar. So, or just go onto YouTube and search our Advanced Installer official channel, and you should find the webinar. It should be public by now. Another question: is this session recorded? So yes, as Christina said, this entire session is being recorded and will be shortly posted on our YouTube channel, and you'll receive a link with it. We should probably share the slides too. We haven't shared the slides so far. We'll find a way to share the slides with everybody. That's a good point. Anyway, all the documentation from the slide is available on our website. So just go on advancedstartup.com/repackager, and there you'll find links to all the features that I mentioned. A new question. I think you mentioned this during this presentation, but if, for example, you just want to capture a registry setting for whatever reason, can I skip the part where I need to specify an EXE file to run the capture? Yes, so let me show you that one more time. So you can do a capture without actually specifying any EXE. Just say new project. We don't save the changes here, and just enable this session monitoring option and say capture setup. And as you see here, it didn't ask me for any setup anymore. If you go to package information, you'll see that it's disabled, so we haven't specified any EXE. If you change your mind, you just untick this option and you specify your EXE that you want to convert or enable it back. So it's that easy. And all of the other settings remain the same. You just see some options that are disabled because these options apply when you are using an EXE. For example, there is no interface that you can automate anymore, or we cannot detect any MSIs. For example, if you have EXEs that bundle MSIs inside, we have an option to detect them, so we can extract them more easily for you to deploy them. A new question from Frank: is there any support for Linux installs? I'm afraid Linux is not on our list of supported operating systems. So when it comes to repackaging, we support all of this, but we support every Windows operating system, but and nothing else besides it. I see a notification from Ravi Kumar. Have you posted a question, Ravi Kumar? Christina, we have a raised hand by Ravi Kumar, and I don't know exactly how I can give him more details to.
I think he's actually the anonymous user
Okay.
because, yeah.
Sorry, Ravi Kumar. So all the questions, please post all the questions in the Q&A session, and we'll make sure to go through all of them. So the next question is from Marino. I have an application with an EXE-file call up multiple folder with MSI. Will dialog box with dialog box to select? I don't I don't get the question here. I think you missed some words, Marino. I have an application with EXE-file call up multiple folder with MSI. Basically, if you're asking, can we repackage multiple MSIs into a new package? If yes, you can repackage multiple MSIs, EXE, or whatever you have. But I don't know what you're meaning by the dialog box. Just as I said earlier, please email us at support@advancedinstaller.com. Give us more details with the question, and we're happy to answer all the questions over email. It doesn't matter if you have a license or if you're a trial customer, everybody can write us an email and we will answer all of them as fast as possible. And a question from Abhishek. Can you give us an overview into custom actions and dialog box controls? Well, dialog box, I haven't seen a repackager that wants to build dialogs, but I'll give you a quick overview here. It was not a topic, but 1 minute. I can show you for 1 minute. So let's open just a project here. I've deleted this project. Let's create a new one. So with every MSI project, you get the dialogues view here, where you can customize basically any dialog from your sequence. This is a what you see, what you get editor. So if you want to move this button here, you move this button. If you want to change the text, you just go and change the text, and so on. So it's very easy. You don't need to write any code to do all of this. You can even add custom actions to be control for the events, or you can say, every time when the application finishes installing, just launch the application at the end. I don't have an application in this project, but anyway, everything is very easy to configure from our UI. Maybe we should do a webinar in the future with dedicated for this. And for custom actions, let me get you to our custom actions. So here we have a cool trick. If you go into our left menu and you can find an option because there are too many, just search. And we search through the left menu items, but we even search the project content. So if you search a file name, you will be taken to files view or something else like that. Now let's go to custom actions page. And here we have a list of predefined custom action. We have a lot of custom actions like launch a file, launch an EXE, set an installer property. We have predefined UI for them and all of that. And here you have the installation stages. So what you see here is high-level interpretation of the UI and execute sequence from an MSI package. This makes it easier for non-experienced packager to easily schedule a custom action in the main stages of your application. But if you want fine grain of your application, just click on the Move button, and here you should see all the standard actions from your MSI tables. So if you want to customize the custom to schedule a custom action after find related standard action, you just click Move, and it will be moved right there. Or if you want to move it a little bit later, and so on. And then you have all the options here to customize, depending if it's an immediate or deferred custom action. You can customize all the options that you have here. We have a lot of predefined custom action. I won't go through entire list. When you're in custom actions view, just press F1 and you'll get our offline documentation, or you just search custom action on our website. And you can find there, for example, you can run PowerShell scripts. Either you can type the script here directly, or you can just select a script file. You can just display error message boxes and so on. This is something that some of you may be doing with the PowerShell app deployment toolkit, like displaying an error box if or closing an application. Let's say I have an application that's running, I want to be close it, or detect if a process is running, and so on. You just specify the process name, and the state of that process will be set into a property, and so on. So you have a lot of powerful custom actions. I know we've received this feedback from other people coming from competitor tools, and they have been amazed by all the things that you can do with the custom action, including installing an MSIX package from inside your MSI package. So if you want to go wild and create an MSI wrapper over MSIX packages, you can do that too. Next question from David. Will you have a session for the Mac application bundling as well as SCCM configuration? I have been unsuccessful in auto-creating an application in SCCM directly from advanced installer. With SCCM, we might do something for Mac application building. We support that for a certain type of Java application mostly, but it's not on our radar for the moment, so I can't promise something right now. So David, please contact us over email at support@advancedinstaller.com, and my colleagues will be glad to help you with both the scenarios. And we'll see what we can schedule in the future. Okay, somebody said bye-bye. Bye, Adam. Can Advanced Installer be linked with SCCM? The last question for today. Yes, so we have a quick integration wizard. Let me show you here. So as I was telling, we have like an intelligent search. If I'm searching for SCCM, it shows me that I need to go to deployment page most likely. So here we have a quick introduction that tells a little bit more about our SCCM deploy tool or Intune deployment tool. So we have a tool that allows you to deploy your package directly from Advanced Installer into your SCCM or Intune configuration. So just click here and launch the tool. It's a wizard-based tool. We need to save the project, of course, because it needs an MSI or EXE to deploy. And basically, it will ask your SCCM connection details. This is an older connection. I haven't tested anything recently on my machine, so it most likely won't connect for my machine, but you can test the connection very easily. Probably it will fail for me at the moment since these credentials are no longer valid. But once you have this connection established, you can go to all the page, you define your package or application for SCCM, add additional packages that you want to configure next to your application, and so on, or a transform if you want to add next to your MSI. And you can do the same for an MSIX package too. Well, I think this was the last question for today. So thank you, everyone. If you have more questions, as I said, email us at support@advancedinstaller.com or just tweet us at Vinst if you're a Twitter user, and we would be glad to help you out with anything that you have. Thank you, and come back for our next session. We'll share the details very soon with the topics for our webinars. Also, please, if you have suggestions for more webinars, as we've seen in some of the questions, please don't forget to send us an email.
Yeah. So thank you so much for your participation. We will come back to you with, okay, thank you. Thank you for the recommendation. So to announce the time in CET, we will do that too. We'll cover this time zone too. So thank you very much. We will come back to you in the next 24 hours with the link to the webinars, to the previous one, and to this recorded session. Thank you. Have a nice day, everybody.